and we've got these famous sea cliffs, the cliffs of Moher, which is hard to say, Moher. And so yeah, it's a beautiful place, yeah.
Right, great. So go on, we've just got to ask, what happened next, and then we'll come on to...
Yeah,
Did you get wet?
That wave, that was probably the worst wipeout. The wipeout is where the wave landed. That was probably the worst wipeout in my life. It was a bit of an outer body experience, Roger, where I was concerned that my limbs were no longer on my body, but thankfully, I got paid for that one actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was a bank advert.
Oh, right. Where was the cameraman?
Camera was up on the cliff, and they also had a cameraman on the boat, yeah.
Amazing,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, fun.
So, John, how did you get into surfing? You know, I've seen people buy little polystyrene surfs and have a little go, but this is big stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I learned how to swim late in life, late 10, age 13 or something like that. I took up surfing. There was a surf club in my local town, and you could go down after school. We'd race down after school, and there was like 5 surfboards. So whoever got there quickest got the best surfboard. And so we used to do that at the age of 10. I gave up surfing at 10 because I had no wetsuit, and they were very expensive back then. And so when I got to the age of 13, wetsuits had become cheap, so I got into surfing full time at age 13.
And but yeah, this is big stuff. When did you start getting into this type of stuff?
Yeah, as I said, I wasn't a great swimmer. I started competing for Ireland from the age of 15 onwards. I started to travel.
How do you compete in surfing?
They give you about 20 minutes. You go out into the water and you can catch 5 waves, but your best 3 waves get a score between 0 and 10. So if you get the all-time wave, you get a 10.
And there's somebody on shore, some old geezer, just looking at you, deciding whether that's a good surf or not.
So I got into the big waves. I had a friend who was a lifeguard, who was an athlete, and so I kind of followed him. I had no great desire to surf big waves, and we went to Hawaii a few times.
Just say that's a sentence I've never said in my life. You went to where? Hawaii.
Went to Hawaii. Basically, I started surfing for Ireland, and that really got me on the travelling bug. So I competed in Scotland, France, Brazil, all over the world. And so when I finished studying, I went and I worked in Japan, and that's how I started going to Japan, over to Hawaii. I started surfing the big waves in Hawaii.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah. Now, it's one thing to have become familiar with the so-called big waves, but the first time, it must be scary.
Hawaii was a good place. Basically, you would paddle out, you'd feel scared, and an 8-foot wave over in Hawaii is actually they call it 8 foot, but it's actually about 25 foot. So, but when you go out there, and the housewives have dropped off their kids at school, and they're just chilling out, relaxed, and surfing these 25-foot waves. So after a while, you kind of think like, well, if the housewives can do it, come on, I can try this.
Was it scary though to begin with?
Yeah, no, I still struggle with fear when I go out. I'm terrified. Nowadays, I just completely depend upon the Lord, and I just ask God for strength.
Do you wear a crash helmet or anything?
You wear a wetsuit helmet, so no, I don't wear a crash helmet. No, so you are.
You must have had some incidents which were pretty nerve-wracking.
I think that one that we showed. I think that was the worst one. But you hit the rocks sometimes. You hit the reef. There's a big cliff. That wave there is underneath a 700-foot cliff. So you do get washed in sometimes, and sometimes the helicopter comes out to get you, but you say, no, it's too shameful to go up in the helicopter. So.
Yeah, but it's nice to have a free ride with a helicopter. It's wow. Have there been any, very, very risky ones where you thought, I don't know that I'll get out of this one?
Yeah, I think God knows that if I had a bad one, like, I probably would never do it again. So, as I said, I'm not the most courageous person. So I'm a confident person when it comes to big waves. I'll go out, I'll try the 8-foot one, I'll try the 15-foot one, and before you know it, I'm happy and I'm on a 30-foot wave. So I go slowly, yeah.
You may go slowly, the waves don't. And you even give names, don't you, to the waves?
Absolutely. So the waves, as a surfer, you're involved in the search. Basically, the waves are always different, the conditions are always different. But you're always searching for the perfect wave. That's what I did traveling all around the world. But But waves don't just break randomly in different places. Like when you get a good wave, it'll break in the exact same spot all the time. And so that wave that you just saw there, I was one of a number of guys who found that wave, and I actually got the privilege of naming it. And it's one of the most famous waves in the world.
So what did you call it, Roger?
No, Roger's Point. Yeah, we could do that, Roger. We need a northeast of England wave. So it's called Eileen. It's
Eileen.
named after Isle is the word in Irish for cliff. So it's yeah.
Great, it's a bit tame, don't you think? Eileen.
There's a
wave.
yeah, there's a great backstory with it. It would take too long to tell.
Oh, okay, right. We won't go down
It involves St. Patrick.
Okay, right. Right. Now, there's competition, isn't there, in surfing? So it's not just for the fun of it, but you do compete against each other.
Yeah, we do. And, you know, Ireland is a bit like, for surfing, we're good at the big wave surfing because, but when it comes to the small waves, like the Brazilians and the Australians are way ahead. Britain has some good surfers. But so you would go to the European Championships and you could do okay, you might get 17th place. But once you went to the World Championships, you were up against kids from Venezuela and Indonesia, and yeah, it was a massacre. Yeah, it just
really okay.
Yeah,
so tell us your successes. What's your greatest success?
Yeah, I got a bronze medal in the European Surfing Championships about 14 or 15 years ago. And so that was a big deal for me, and that was in the senior division, the over 28. So that was amazing that I pulled that one off. Yeah.
And the way Pete introduced you, are you a professional surfer?
No, I have a surfing school, so I make my living out of surfing. So no, I'm not. I don't make my living out of surf competitions. No, I don't. But I've competed on an amateur level. I haven't competed at the professional. Yeah.
And so, what kids come to you to learn how to surf?
Yeah, I started Lane Surf School about 21 years ago, so myself and my wife run that.
And how many, what do you call them?
Instructors?
No, not instructors, but pupils, students, what do you call them?
Yeah, we've gone through different stages. The Hinch where we live, it's probably the most famous surfing beach in Ireland, or one of two. And so I started the surf school. We were the first full-time surf school, but now there's 5 surf schools. So it kind of gets spread out. But in summertime we have about 5 surf instructors, and then the instructors have about 3 lessons a day, and there's about 8 kids in each. So on a busy day you'll have 120 kids in the surf school.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And they're paying for.
They are paying.
And do they sort of revere you? Wow, this is John McCarthy.
We do try to promote our business, so I have to admit, we do have posters of me, and I signed them for little kids. So hopefully our motivation is right.
Right, amazing. Well, it sounds a very exciting life, but I'm sure there are ups and downs as there are in everything. Now, of course, Southern Irish, we presume you were brought up in Roman Catholicism, were you?
That's right. Yeah, I grew up. Both my parents are Catholic, and my mum was very devout Catholic, and so yeah, I grew up. You know, Lent is the 40 days before Easter, and so we would be in mass 7 a.m. every morning. So back then, you know, Ireland was a religious country back then. So it's changed.
It has changed radically, hasn't it? I know, and there've been a lot of questions over Catholicism there. But so you would go to mass at 7 a.m. And did you enjoy it?
Yeah, we used to get hot bread buns after mass, so that was a thrill.
Okay.
So it was good memories.
So maybe if we had better buns after these meetings, we might get more focus. Yeah, okay. It's not bad. They're improving. I keep dropping you hints because the buns to begin with were quite manky, but they're not homemade anymore. So we're doing all right. Okay, so you went to mass every morning for 40 days. Did it mean anything to you?
It did. In my young years and in my teenage years, I definitely had. I knew I was religious. I knew I had a devotion towards God. You know, I didn't know the simple teachings of Jesus, so it was all a bit vague. But I definitely had a draw towards Jesus, and I had a few conversations with the Lord for sure. And I said my prayers before I went to bed at night.
Do you remember what you prayed, John?
I would say the Our Father, I would say the Glory be to the Father, and there was a couple of strange ones in there as well.
So they were repeated?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And if I'd asked you, as a teenager, John, what is a Christian? What would you have said?
I would not have known what a Christian was. Yeah. So no, I hadn't met. I couldn't say I've met anyone. There was one or two guys in the town that we knew they were different, but they'd had a kind of a personal relationship with God. But I hadn't really met anyone who'd come to a personal relationship with the Lord, or who could say, "Oh, the Lord has spoken to me," or yeah.
Now, John, I imagine in travelling the world, and especially in the sort of scene that you were in, there would be a lot of temptations for a young man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did you fall to them?
Absolutely. So as I said, in my teenage years, I didn't know the simple teachings of Jesus. So to know God and to know His teachings, it saves you from a lot of trouble. I think God was good to me. He did save me He protected me from a certain degree of craziness. But yeah, no, I was into drinking and partying and just lots of relationships. So yeah, I was. You can say I was definitely without an anchor, Roger. I was out at sea. Yeah.
What, was there a girl in every surfing centre?
No, I was quite a loyal boyfriend. You know what I mean? I would be in a relationship for a year or two, and so that was kind of how it went. Yeah. But ultimately, those relationships, I had a very poor success rate in my relationships, Roger, before I became a Christian. So yeah,
right, okay.
They all failed.
They all failed. Okay, all right. But it also led to a sense of shame and I don't know, guilt. Is that too strong a word?
Yeah. Well, in those relationships, unfortunately, you either hurt or you get hurt, and so that's I've heard it being said that relationships, it's like sticking a piece of tape to a piece of paper, and once those relationships break, part breaks away. So there's brokenness that comes with that. So I both experienced being broken-hearted, and also I broke heart. So yeah, it's
and
not
guilt.
Yeah. Well, no, I was pretty caught up in my lifestyle. I was with my friends, and I think I don't think there wasn't too much guilt. No.
Now, John, in travelling the world, did you meet Christians in any of the countries you arrived at?
I got to the age of 30, and
So this is very recently now.
yeah, well, I'm 48 now. Thank you, Roger. You got me there. You got me. So I got to the age of 30, and I was in Byron Bay. So basically, I ran the surf school for the summer, and I got to make money, and I got to travel. Just live the dream, go and travel around the world. And so I'd been to Hawaii, I went to Australia, I went to Byron Bay.
Where's Byron Bay?
On the east coast it's where all the hippies hang out, the east coast of Australia.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's a real hippie town. It's a fun place with great waves. And so I was there, and now, Roger, I was into yoga. I got into yoga because my thinking was, I'm getting old, and I need to stay flexible because I'm a champion surfer. This is who I am. I need to stay on top of my game. So I got really into yoga. I started eating in the Hare Krishna restaurants. And from there, I was like, I want to know about all the religions, because there were some strange things in the Hare Krishna religion. So I bought a book on world religions, and I got to the part where I read about. I was interested in them all, and I didn't know it at the time, but there was a draw. God was drawing me. There was questions that needed answers, and so I read about Jesus in the book on world religions, and I was reminded of when I was 14 or 15. So I went to a convent in Sydney, a Catholic convent, and I bought a Bible there. And so next up, I went to Indonesia surfing, and I read Matthew's Gospel.
Great.
And I came back to Ireland, and I told my friends, I said, I'm going for Jesus now. And I went back to Mass. I tried to be good, and the next thing that happened. So to answer your question, I don't think I ever met Christians. Maybe one or two. Yeah, I'd never really met someone who said praise the Lord or hey, God is good, or someone who talked passionately about Jesus. But when I came back to Ireland, I met a man who ran an organisation called Christian Surfers.
Oh, right.
And I went to an event with him, and that was my first experience going to a Christian event.
So these are people who love surfing who are Christians as well.
That's right.
And what was the event like?
Yeah, so I went along, I was reading the Bible, and I was interested But I went along and there was guys with long hair and with electric guitars and Bibles, and they were surfers, and they had their hands in the air. So I was just like, wow, that's nice. They're full on. They're really into it. But I just thought like, I don't need that. I'm a good person. You know, I was like, I'm going to mass every week. My friends are not going to mass, so I must be doing good. That's what I thought.
Bit like the story we heard yesterday, a guy, he really sought to become a Christian by just doing what he thought was good.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not what Christianity is all about. How long did it take you to realise that?
Yeah, so I went back from that first Christian Surfers event, that was 18 years ago, and then I tried to be good, but what happened was the habits from the age of 15 to the age of 30, the bad habits, the lifestyle of chaos that I picked up, drinking, partying and all that stuff, it didn't just go away. As much as I tried to change, I ended up back in the same loop. And I ended up in a bad relationship, and it turned bad basically. We were getting on okay, but it wasn't good at all. And I went back to the Christian Surfers event, it was 17 years ago tonight. And
how long after the first visit?
It was 1 year after.
1 year later.
Yeah, and basically what was going on in my head at that time is things had started to go pear-shaped in my life, personal life, and I thought I was doing well. Like 6 months before, I was doing great, and in my head, Roger, I just thought I need to go back to that Christian Surfers event in Devon because I need to get topped up. That's what I thought.
Right.
So that I knew I need to go back there. Things are not going good, Yeah.
Without going into details, John, you got disease, didn't you, from
yeah.
I don't know, promiscuous relationship?
I did, yeah. And so it was basically God probably allowed me to just run with my sin for a while longer to show me, because where I was the year before when I first went, I was basically in pride, preoccupied with myself. I was like, I'm a good person, so what do I need Jesus, what do I really need to commit my life to Jesus for? So a year later, I come back and I'm unhealthy, I need help, and medically, and so I was ready then to listen to the message. My ears were open, I had been humbled. So I came back, listening.
So it's the same sort of event, long-haired guys, guitars.
And they were all smiling, and they were all like, "Hey, John, how you doing?" They all remembered me, and I was just like, okay, how you doing? But I went along, and yeah.
And do you remember what you heard?
I do remember what I heard. I met some lovely, friendly people there. I was stoked to be there. It was just a lovely environment, and so there was a man who became a very good friend of mine. He was sharing the good news of Jesus, and yeah, it became very clear to me. Basically, the penny dropped. I had an epiphany. I kind of had a picture of Jesus on the cross, and that Jesus didn't just die for the sins of the world; He died for my sins. And I actually had a picture of the blood dropping from the cross onto my hand. So, as I said, a year before, I knew a year later, that time, I knew what my guilt was. I knew what my sin was. And so I realized, like, wow, I've sinned and Jesus died for me. And there was a verse, can I read it out, Roger? I'll read a few verses. So there was a verse read, the pastor that night, he read this verse from Romans chapter, I'm really getting old now, Roger, leave that. This happens when you turn 47, by the way. So,
I wouldn't know, but I'll believe you. Yeah.
I'll tell you about it later. So, but this is a verse that the penny dropped on in Romans chapter 8, verse 5. And it's about two different lives that you can try and live, and for me, I was trying to live in between these two lives. And Romans 8, verse 5 says, "For those who live according to the flesh, which is the natural self, they set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, things of the Spirit. For the mind of the flesh, like the natural mind, is death, but the mind of the Spirit is life and peace. Because the mind of the flesh is hostile towards God, for it is not subject to God's law, neither indeed can it be." And here's the punchline, this is what got me. "So those who are in the flesh cannot please God." And I knew, Roger, what I'd been doing, and my sin had caught up with me. I knew my life didn't please God, and the penny dropped. And so I had that epiphany of Jesus loved me, His love was coming towards me, He died for me. And so there was a voice in my soul, and I said, I need Jesus. I heard that voice in my soul. I need Jesus. And so for me it was just, it wasn't like somebody said something, but I was just like, I'm in, Lord, I'm in. I tried to wrestle you, I tried to do it on my own, and I just like, I'm in. And so there was a surrender in my heart.
Yeah.
And so that's when everything changed.
And that was 17 years ago tonight.
17 years ago tonight.
When you say everything changed, what did change?
Yeah, immediately. Yeah, when you make that decision, you give your. There was another verse. Sorry, Jesus says, "Deny yourself, take up your cross, come follow me." So there is to be a Christian, there is a dying to self. Where it's like, okay, Lord, I'm going to die, lay down my life, and come to you, and you give me new life. But so yeah, like when you give your life to Christ, you come into new life. Immediately, the burden. I didn't know what it was, but it's like the backpack I'd been carrying of my sin was gone, and I just felt, so I had peace and purpose. So I had God's peace. The weight was gone of my sin that I didn't even know what it was, but it was gone. I knew I was forgiven, and also the purpose was incredible. In that, like I traveled all around the world searching for ways, and you're trying to find, your ego is trying to find a place where you're like, oh, you're the man, he's the guy, people look at you and admire you. But, it never satisfies. But you give your life to Christ, and then I'm just like, wow, this is what life is about. Yeah.
It's a great thing to experience, this personal peace with God through trusting Jesus Christ, but it has its practical outworkings, and you were in this unhelpful relationship.
That's right.
How did you, did you extricate yourself? How did you sort things out?
I like that word, extricate. I need to learn that word.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but anyway, it was there.
That's good, I like that. So yeah, I did seek counsel, and I asked the guys there, I was like, guys, I'm in this relationship, and it's heavy, and it's not going, with no kids or anything. I was in this relationship for a short period of time. And so we were living together, and so I did get advice, like, what do you do? So yeah, I basically went home, and I told this girl that, no, I'm going to live for God now. Something's changed. I've given my life to Jesus. And I brought her along to a Christian event, and she bailed and went to the pub, and that was the end of it. Basically, she headed back. She wasn't from where I live now. And she headed back to her own country.
Now, in the year or so that you were living with her, were you still going to Mass?
Yeah, I think I was.
So did you go to confession?
Yeah, I don't think I did confession. I wasn't that religious.
No, okay, right. I was going to ask if you told the truth.
Yeah. But again, I don't think it would have dropped that there was anything wrong with that. Because, in Ireland people can be religious, but you just live, So again, the simple teachings of Jesus, there wasn't much revelation there.
Now, John, okay, you've trusted Jesus Christ, made a big difference, you've got yourself sorted with regard to this relationship, but you are still in a very Roman Catholic community.
Yeah.
Was that tough? Did people begin to think, John's not part of us anymore?
Yeah, well, in my business, like someone who I worked very closely with, that person basically would have said to my best friend, oh, something's going on, you need to talk to him, like something's happened. And so my best friend pulls up beside me, and we go for a walk on the beach, and he's like, what's going on? And I said, listen, I've dedicated my life to God, I'm going for God. And he was just like, he'd never heard anything like that. So yeah, like, no, you definitely isolated, but I had a sense, I remember, because I kind of stopped going to the pub because, I just wasn't going back. Like I would have gone into the pub, sat with the guys for 10 minutes and then just headed off or something. But for me, going to the pub meant you could wake up anywhere the next day. So I just moved away from that. And so, but yeah, no, I had a sense, I felt like God was saying to me, this is going somewhere. And I just stuck at it. And so there was 3 years where I was 2 years where I was on my own in that town. I would drive 30 or 40 minutes to the nearest Christian church. And so yeah, there was a couple of years where I was just on my own. So, but it was just time with God. I was just reading the Bible, and God was speaking to me. You know?
Still surfing?
Oh yeah, still surfing. Yeah, and I that's when I won the bronze medal. So, and that's when I did that big wave, the bank advert. God gave me this incredible opportunity.
So what, a bank paid you to do this?
Yeah, they paid me to go and surf that wave, and it won advert.
I've never known a bank payout at all.
Yeah, it was danger money. It was danger money.
Okay.
But it won advert of the year. It was quite an iconic.
Oh really?
Yeah, in Ireland, people for 10 years, people would say like, "Oh, you're the guy in that." So yeah, it was an epic advert. Yeah, it's AIB, Allied Irish Banks. Yeah.
Amazing.
So God blessed my surfing. I actually got.
Did they give you any free samples?
I got sponsored by Rip Curl, a surf brand, soon after I got saved. So you know, that's not what God does oftentimes, but in my story, He just wanted to bless my surfing, and yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, are you married now?
I am. So 3 years to the day. So 3 years. So basically, 14 years ago today,
okay.
I called my wife to be. I said, Rachel, we'd like to go for a coffee, because I said to the Lord, I said, I was like, I can't do this anymore, and so I called Rachel, and we started dating. So we have 3 lovely children now. Yeah.
Great, wonderful. Is she a surfer?
No.
What about your children?
She runs a surf school with me
you.
and does not surf, and so yeah, she's not mad about surfing.
Okay. What about your children?
Yeah, my boy Matthew is 9. He's into it.
Is he?
He's a bit like me. My daughter Rebecca is 11. She's slightly into it, not too into it. She's into football and rugby. And then I have a 4.5-year-old Nathaniel. I got him on the surfboard this year. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know. Does it worry you that something dreadful could happen to a child doing the thing that you love so much?
What fears me, Roger, is that God seems to be telling me to be courageous in my old age instead of being cautious. And I've just got some new boards made to surf even bigger waves. So I'm more concerned about myself. So yeah, I feel like God's telling me to.
When you say new boards, what are they made of?
They're polyurethane, and they're covered in fiberglass. So no, I don't worry about the kids. The kids are very safe. They're on a beach, and yeah.
How much does a good surfboard cost? Because you can get them for £17.50 now.
Yeah, they're nowadays they used to be €400, and now they're like €1,200.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's great to meet you. I do think you're a bit foolhardy, but it's still great to meet you. And I admire your courage immensely. Do you still compete?
No, but I do, Roger, do the big waves, and so that's a whole world. That's like it's not a competition, but it is. So I do the big waves, and so just to maybe share this bit. About 1.5 years ago, I felt like God. I was reading about Abraham in the Bible, and Abraham was too old, but God says to him, "You're not too old," and I felt like God telling me to go with faith, to be courageous rather than cautious, because that's my natural tint. And so I started swimming, getting fit, and I went out, and it was some of the best big wave surfers in the world were there in that break, and I caught this wave. It was a remarkable wave. God just blessed me with this amazing wave. And 2 of the best videographers, surf videographers, were there. They filmed it from 3 different angles, and I have a YouTube channel. It's called Cliffs of Hope. But that video is on there. It's called Moment of Decision. And I had a decision to make, whether to go by faith and trust, or whether to go by fear. And so I prayed, and I just trusted God and went for it. And so Vodafone, the mobile phone company, just made an advert with myself and my wife. And so they used that shot, you know what I mean, of that giant wave. But it was a remarkable wave. So God, but again, so I have a YouTube channel now. So basically, I have to go out. My producer friend, he's a pastor. He says to me, "John, if you're going to die, make sure you get on camera." So we're doing this YouTube thing, surfing thing, and we're doing it for the glory of God. And I love to share Jesus' message. But Roger, maybe the last thing I could say tonight is that, guys, 17 years ago tonight, I was at a meeting like this, and God presented me with an opportunity to go all in with Jesus. And I experienced His love. God has demonstrated His love. Jesus died for sinners, and so God presented me with that opportunity to come and receive Him wholeheartedly. And by the grace of God, I took that opportunity. And so if there's someone here tonight and you haven't made that decision, 17 years ago tonight, I made that decision. And don't miss out on what God has for you, because it's by far better than anything this world can offer. So yeah.
John, a real privilege to have you here tonight, to hear you. And God keep you safe as well. But thanks so much. You'll stay around, won't you, and chat with folks. Let's show our appreciation.